What causes such extreme fear of falling that when we go to walk, we tense up, we tighten up, we lose our natural balance reflexes. This can get so bad that some people can't even get out of their chair, or sometimes are paralyzed to the point where they can't even get up out of bed. The sense of movement causes them to startle and push back and almost fight. They can want to walk. They can have the desire to walk. There doesn't have to be a mental problem or some type of depression or anything that could be going on, but it's just that the second they feel sway, their body startles. It's like a hyperactive reaction. What causes that, and how do we treat it? Hey, it's me, Andy B, the Dizzy Busy PT, speaking out for all those who are too busy to be dizzy, which is all of us. And this has been something that I have noticed and observed for 25 years, this startle reaction, this hyperactive startle protective reaction that we were all born with at some point, where, you know, when we learned to walk and we'd fall, we'd have a natural extensor reaction that would kick in that would help protect us. But what happens when it gets activated as we get older, and why does that happen? So I want to invite anyone who feels like they have a strong understanding of this to comment in the sections below. But here's what I think. I think it's a conditioned reflex. Think of Pavlov's dogs, okay? Let's just review that. Pavlov was able to condition the reflexes of dogs. He would put meat on the ground and he would have dogs be near the meat, and they would naturally have that salivation reflex when they were near the meat. They could smell the meat, it would trigger the natural salivatory reflex, and the dogs would salivate. Pavlov learned that he could take a bell and ring a bell every time he put the dog near the meat with the natural reflex of salivation, and then do that over time, and then eventually take the meat away, ring the bell, and guess what happened? The dog would salivate. So Pavlov taught the dogs how to have a reflex be activated with a different stimulus. So this is very interesting because think about balance. When we sway, it's a normal reaction to tense and to move, but over time we learn confidence and that reaction decreases as we get older. But if we fall, imagine using a walker, okay? And I'm even going to take it one step further. Imagine having neuropathy. Maybe you have been on chemotherapy for 3 years and the sensors in your feet aren't working quite as well as they used to. The speedometers, the GPS systems that tell you how fast you're moving and where your body is, they're just not working the way they used to. And so you've had to learn to use a walker over time, and you're using the walker, you go to reach for something, you sway forward, and suddenly the walker fails you, falls, and you fall. And maybe you injure yourself. Maybe it's a bad injury. Maybe you hit your head. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just fall and it's embarrassing and you might struggle to get up off the floor. But what happens to some of my patients after a fall? Well, sometimes people become very paralyzed. They tense, they stiffen. We work for months trying to help these reflexes relax and to let the unconscious do its thing again, but the conscious system is just overpowering. I hypothesize that what's happened is that their reflex of startle reaction has become conditioned, where it used to only be activated when they were young kids, you know, when they were babies trying to learn to walk, and it would keep them safe. But as we get older, I think that startle reaction, that primitive reflex of extensor tone comes back, and I think it's conditioned. And instead of the bell conditioning the salivation, it's the sway that conditions the extensor reflex to become too activated. So how do we treat it? Well, I'm going to tell you that in the extreme cases, it is very hard, but it starts with understanding. It's important that the person knows why this is happening. It can be so debilitating and so frustrating. So understanding that it's a normal physiologic reaction, I think sometimes it can be a post-traumatic stress almost disorder. And if the person has any kind of an inner ear problem, where they've spun out, or where one ear isn't working anymore, or both ears aren't working, they don't have the sense of balance or neuropathy. I'm telling you, I'd love to do a video on neuropathy. Neuropathy is one of the biggest problems to balance, but nobody ever talks about it, and I don't know why. But when you can't feel where your body is and you sway, those conditioned reflexes are just going to come in and kick in really hard. So the one person who can't get out of bed, and you know, this is a person who their loved one actually reached out to me asking about how to help their mother who's battling this. And I think that just touched my heart to hear that. This person's from all the way on the other side of the world. What do you do? Well, first off, I want you to know I'm going to pray for you. Not trying to bring God into this, and I don't want to mess up anyone's belief system here, but I believe in prayer, and I'm going to pray for calm and for peace and an ability to recondition those reflexes that might be happening. I like to expect miracles, and I think miracles can happen, and somehow we have to learn how to work through some of these intense fears. But to be practical, from what I'm understanding, this one individual is having a hard time even getting up out of bed. Like just sitting up alone can be challenging. Well, first off, I think some of that could be coming from some neuropathy. And I think, I don't know if you can tell, I'm sitting on the chair half right now. I've got my feet planted, but I definitely think what I would do is try to pull in some arm and forearm feedback, maybe a platform walker. We call it a platform walker in the United States. I'm not sure what they call it in other parts of the world, where you would have a grip to hold on to, and your forearms also can press onto the ground. So what we have to do is recondition the reflexes. In this case, we have to do gentle exposure therapy at very small graded elements. So we have to gently start feeling that sway as safe again. But if we've got bad neuropathy, it's probably not safe unless we pull in some more help from the arms. And that's why I think the platform walker could be a bigger difference. The other thing I think is cognitive behavioral therapy, getting help from a counselor. In extreme cases where these patients are very paralyzed, one time with a physical therapist like me, I only have so much strength, and that's when I call in help from the big dogs. So I would get help from a experienced counselor, someone who knows how to help work through some of this stuff. But then graded exposure, slow, small, bed mobility. Kind of think about what we did when we were babies. We first learned to roll, and then we learned to crawl, and then we learned to sit, and then we learned to gently walk, and we move forward that way. But using the platform walker, I think, could make a difference. For people who are just walking and they're not totally paralyzed, but when they walk, they're stiff and they're tense and they can't relax, then that's where we do some of the corner balance exercises. And you've seen some of my videos. If you look back, I give some ideas. I wanted to give one other one before I finish up this video today. It's off of Paul Lamb's Tai Chi for Arthritis program. And I also would suggest this person who I'm thinking about, even in bed, if you can just start to learn the sigh breathing. What we have to do is reprogram, or we have to stimulate parasympathetic nervous system activity, because the sympathetic nervous system is hyperactive, causing this conditioned reflex to stay present in our minds. So the more we stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, the more likely we're going to be able to win this battle. So Paul has this one move that I really like, where you kind of sit up tall and you bring your head down and you lift your head, and then you bring your hands in and you pull your chin in gently, and then you just push out gently, and then your head goes down. And so we go up and we breathe in. I'll do one more. Up, tuck your chin in, and this is good for the suboccipital muscles, and we're pushing against a slight resistance, breathing out. and down. Well, maybe we'll go into that more with another video. So I hope this helps explain how conditioned reflexes can happen when we fall, and how that can paralyze us to be able to move, and how important it is to understand where that comes from, and then some different treatment ideas to start addressing it. I'm rooting you on. You can win this battle. Feel free to comment in the comments below. We want to hear what's worked for you. What other ideas do you have? Why does this startle reaction kick in? Why won't it turn off for some people? Thank you so much. Join me again so we can all go and spin no more.